Good morning, everyone. Just come downstairs. As you can see, Bliss is ready and eager to go out. She has got a long line on. That's for a reason, because I'm going to go through. So a couple of clients of mine have been asking me about sort of door work and door protocols, because when they go to the door and they open the back door or even the front door, the dogs are kind of wanting to kind of bolt out, and then maybe in the back garden in particular may run around and bark. So kind of going to just go through a protocol of how I would handle that. And again, you know the type of trainer I am, so we're going to do it by teaching. So you'll see, and there has been a few videos on social media recently where they call it sort of correcting the dog, but what they're doing is they're applying a physical punishment to the dog. So i.e. they go to the door, the dog tries to go out, and they just pull the door, and in a lot of cases they're closing the door on the dog, or they're going to give the dog a swift yank on a lead. Now, we're not going to do anything. You can see the lead's loose, but what I can do is I can either have hold of it or I can step on it, just to manage and prevent that charging around. But I'm not going to apply any physical discomfort to Bliss for doing this. We're going to teach her what we want her to do. Now, the reason why I don't go down this whole debate about, and particularly for something like this, I mean, no trainer, if a trainer is teaching this by, good girl Bliss, come here. If trainer is teaching this by using that, I'd be changing trainers, because this is probably one of the easiest things to teach, just by using that kind of reinforcement model. But the reality is dogs don't understand bad behavior, right? So there's this thing that, you know, you keep hearing trainers all the time. Dogs need to know what they shouldn't do versus what they should do. They'll never understand that. Dogs only have behavior, okay? So they do what works, and if that gets reinforced, i.e. then repeated, so even just running down the garden chasing the birds fly away, that will act as a reward for running out of the door and going down the garden. It's not that that's a bad behaviour, but if you correct a dog, they may choose to avoid it. Now, let's be very clear, avoidance is not training. I tell a story about one of my clients a few years ago whose dog was eating the stuff out the kitchen bin, pulling the bin over and eating it. And the dog would run under the table and cower and look very sheepish and guilty. And the owner believed he knew he'd done wrong. The reality was, and in that session, all I did, I said, look, he doesn't know he's done wrong. There's two different behaviours going on. There's the pulling over the bin and eating it, and then there's you coming home and finding the mess on the floor. They're two completely separate behaviours. So I actually emptied the contents of the bin on the floor after the dog had been sent out of the room. We called the dog back into the room. Guess what? Dog ran and cowered under the table. I said to the owner, go on, tell him off. He knows he's done wrong. Clearly shows you that they just make connections to things. They're associative learners. So if you make something unpleasant about crossing the threshold, they will avoid it. Well, avoidance doesn't teach them not to do it. They just avoid it. If you walk down an alleyway and there's a gang of ewes or whatever being quite loud and you walk away from it, you avoid it. Well, you haven't learnt anything, because they could be the nicest gang of ewes that you've seen and they could be very polite as you walk through. So you can see avoidance comes from that fear side. So you're using fear to stop the dog from doing something, whereas if you teach them what to do, you never need to. Okay, so anyway, without further ado, waffled on enough, let's get cracking. So we come to the door. Now, the situation for me is if I'm going to let Bliss out, I know she wants to run. You can probably just see we've got our pond down there. She likes to run down to the pond and dip a toe in and what have you. But if I want her to stay here, I've got the long line, which means I can either pick it up because I'm filming, I can either stand on it, which will prevent her from going out. But what I tend to do is just go, right, I'm going to have her here, and I can go, right, where do I want her to be? Come here then, girl. Reward her in position, and then I can kind of position myself in front of the door so that I can act as a blocker if I want to, or I can step on the lead. But I can just open the door a tiny bit. Okay, open it a little bit, nudge it, good. Reward her for staying, and then just kind of open it, and she can look and she can listen to the birds. And then I can just open the door fully wide, and she hasn't gone out. Then what I can do is I can come out and just step away, and Bliss is there just waiting. She's eager to come out, right? So she wants to come out, but look, middle, call it a middle, and then off she goes. And then she's out, and then I can just say, okay, go. Okay, go on then. And then she can go and have a look and do what she wants. But then she stays around here. Now, the reason for the long line is, let's just say I come back in. Come on then, Bliss. This way. Let me pick up that lead, get that in. I'm going to see if I can Not that she will necessarily charge out, but let's just go, right, okay, good girl, good girl. Okay, so we go to the door again. You can see how Bliss is not going. So come on then, out you go. So let's just say that she went out and I didn't want her to go back and she's running around the garden. Okay, so obviously with the long line I could have stepped on to prevent her. She's gone down. What I can do is if she's doing something that I don't want her to do, I can just come down, pick up the lead. If she was barking, just going to walk her back nicely. There's no stress, there's no tension, and it's like I just come back up and I just walk her back in, and she comes back in, and we reset. Okay, so I reset, bring her back. Right, Bliss, I can have a little bit of a chain break if I want, but I'm not going to do anything, not going to communicate, because she got it wrong, and she just comes back in. And then we open the door again, and this time, you know, I can either position myself in front to act as just so I block her from running about, but as she gets better and she's focused on me, I'll reward her for staying. So the key emphasis is just rewarding her for staying in this position. Good girl. And then if I want to, it's like, right, we come out, and again, come on then, girl, let her come out. She's got a long line on, let her go again. If she then decides to go around and if was to start barking at anything that was passing, again, all I would do is I would just pick up the lead and just go and just bring her in, and we repeat, and she comes in and she loses that outside, and then we reset. And then what we do is we keep spotting. If she keeps breaking at a certain point, right, if it's the sight of the birds, then what we want to do is I'm going to keep hold of the lead. Sorry, girl. Come on then. So I can just keep hold of the lead, can open the door, can step through, can again keep the lead loose, then say, come on, and then can walk with me, and we can, good girl, where are you? There you are, good girl. And she can walk with me, and let's say there was some birds down on the bird table, can bring her down, and then, sorry, my filming's terrible there, as she looks at the birds, I can just go, good girl, for being quiet. So I can reward her for being quiet and not barking in the area that we don't want her to bark. Good girl. Ready, left, right, back, 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 middle. Good girl, good girl. Okay, go. Back. Good girl. Back. Good girl, yes, good. Nice job. I hope that helps a little bit. So yeah, so just does the wrong behaviour, bring her in, reset her, bring her out calmly, and then we just go from there. So I hope that helps. Probably can do a better one than that, but I hope that kind of explains the process. But again, you can see no need for harsh corrections or anything, not at all. You know, it's a pretty easy thing to teach without going to anything like that. So I don't understand why it would ever be done any other way. But there you go, cool.